Hello folks, and welcome to another video. We've got the classic Beyblades to look into today, along with a throwback to the cartoons, the stories and everything in between. But the main question to answer today is the title of the video. How did the original Beyblade cartoon end? Well, to know that, why don't you hop in, buckle up, and allow me to narrate the whole story for you. So without any further ado, here we go.
Quit fooling around! Push him over the top! Almost there!
Alright, so the original Beyblade cartoon, the one we all loved growing up, ended on December 29th, 2003. It was the episode titled Bey Battle for the Ages from Beyblade G Revolution. However, by the time we reached the finale, I want you to understand what the show had brought to the table up to that point. On paper, what would have looked like a bunch of stories about spinning tops, which in their defense was initially exactly that, it actually became so much more than the creators could have ever imagined. Beyblade, developed by Takara, launched in July of 1999 in Japan, accompanied by a manga series by Takao Aoki that ran in Koro Koro Comics, which in itself is Japan's premier toy and game tie-in manga magazine. I'd like to remind you that this is the same brand that helped bring Pokemon and Tamagotchi into the limelight, so just know that they're seriously good with their stuff. Anyway, the anime was initially commissioned as a mere promotional jumpstart for the Beyblade spinning tops by what's now a merged company, Takara Tomy. Season 1 was produced by Madhouse, and it was actually their first time using digital ink and paint. Then the seasons 2 and 3, titled V-Force and G Revolution respectively, were taken over by Nippon Animation. Now, in spite of all these seemingly humble origins of the show, it wasted no time in making its presence known among the audiences. Call it their mantra or their formula for success, but it sure did carry them through a run of 154 episodes over the course of 3 seasons, all while telling one continuous story. Let's begin with the first season, running from January 2001 to December of the same year. This one was simply titled Beyblade and familiarized us with the Blade Breakers. This was an era-defining team that shaped the franchise for years to come and is still hailed by the fans. The protagonist was Tyson Granger, known as Takao Kinomiya in Japan, and this was someone who was hyperactive to his core and wore his heart on his sleeve. Then came the calculative powerhouse in Kai Hiwatari, and he has an emotional trajectory to his character arc that gets gradually more and more important as we progress with the series. So much so that it becomes the backbone of it all. Then came the others, such as the martial artist Ray Con, the joyful technician in Max Tate, and don't forget Kenny, their very handy manager and researcher. These members also carried a mystical spirit inside their Beyblades, called a Bit Beast, which simply put were like these ancient sacred beings that chose their human partners, and went on to form an emotional bond with them as well. So Tyson had Dragoon, the Blue Dragon, Kai with Danza, the Phoenix, Ray with Dryger, the White Tiger, and Max with Dracial, the Turtle. Which brings me back to Kai's character arc, which was able to bring in some really mature themes for a kids show, covering trauma, isolation, vengeance in ways never seen before. These are little additions that culminate into such an effective ending that hit us the way it did. It proved that the show was so much more than just spinning tops. But in season 1, we follow the Blade Breakers who compete in regional and global tournaments and travel all over the world. Ray faced off against his past with the White Tigers in China, while Max faced his mother's team, the All-Stars in America. They all battled the Majestics in a series of high-stakes matches during their travels through Europe. But the emotional crux came in Russia, where we meet Kai's dark past. Raised in an abusive monastery by his grandfather Voltaire, he was trained to become a weapon for the Biovolt Corporation, a truly evil organization. Soon enough, Kai defected to the Demolition Boys and got past Boris to obtain the powerful Black Dranza. But eventually, he realized that the powers were worthless if he threw away his relations with the Blade Breakers. As a result, he rejoins them just before the finals. The season ends with Tyson emerging victorious in the World Championships, where he would be seen using Dragoon's power to its absolute limit to defeat Tala. However, it didn't end there. In an unexpected final scene, Kai goes on to challenge Tyson to a one-on-one battle to shockingly conclude the first season. In Beyblade V-Force, the second season, which ran from January to December 2002, here we start with the disbanded Blade Breakers, with each member living their own lives. Max is living in America with his mother, Ray is teaching Beyblading to children back home in his Chinese village, Kai is studying at a Japanese internal school as he gave up the sport mainly because there weren't any worthy opponents, as he said. But signs of new threats come about eventually, and this forces all of them to reunite. The the Saint Shields emerge and claim the Bit Beasts to be dangerous spirits that need to be sealed away. Then there was Team Psychic, led by Dr. Zagart, who wanted to steal the Bit Beasts to empower an android son named Zeo, who was a replica of Zagart's deceased child. Zeo then goes on to be friends with Tyson before he learns the truth about his own nature. The season built toward a world tournament that would decide the fate of the Bit Beasts. Eventually, with the Blade Breakers reunion, they were joined by a skeptical classmate and an enthusiast of the sport in Hillary Tachibana. The season concluded with Tyson defeating Zeo in the finale, and this resulted in the stolen Dranza and Draciel returning to their original owners. Now, while the team was intact, there was something off about their futures, which would then set up Season 3 perfectly for us. In the third and final season of this saga, Beyblade G Revolution, which aired from January to December of 2003, unfolded the final lap of all the stories that we were introduced to from the very beginning. Personally, it's my favourite season, and it exceeded everybody's expectations. A newly announced World Championship with a twisted rule that the defending champions couldn't be on the same team anymore. Tyson was left with Kenny and Hillary, since Kai, Ray and Max left to rejoin their former teams. Then we met with a new energetic blader in Daichi Sumeragi, who joined the team to form the BBA Revolution. They even got a new coach in Tyson's older brother, Hero. This season's first half mainly dealt with the cracks in these relationships, where we even saw the Blade Breakers compete against one another for the first time. But the return of Boris after season 1 was the turning point. He created the Beyblade Entertainment Global Association, or simply Bega, under the false pretense of reform. Now, Bega was evil to the sport. They swindled themselves to become the topmost sporting authority, and this was followed by independent Beyblade clubs being shut down, and kids being forced to be loyal to Bega or face a lifetime ban from the sport. This turn of events made Boris and Bega the primary antagonists of the season, simply for ruining the joys of Beyblading. Now, Bega brought in an elite set of bladers called the Justice 5. Led by the prodigy Brooklyn, a genius who just seemed to have a natural talent for Beyblade. With a Zeus Beyblade for himself and the Greek god being his Bit Beast too, it got him supernatural powers where he could create wormholes, alter dimensions, and even call for a catastrophe. Ridiculous, I know. Anyway, the Justice 5 tournament format had one blader from each side per match. On top of that, the other teams fought to protect the fate of the sport against these ultra-powered, emotionless freaks. But then, we finally got what we were waiting for. The Blade Breakers, known as G Revolution, came up against Bega's super team. These matches were insane, with multiple Blade Breakers emerging victorious. But the scores were tied. Everything came down to the final battle, which was to be fought between Tyson and Brooklyn. The last 2 episodes of the series tie it all together. Episode 51, titled Brooklyn's Back, shows us the much anticipated face-off between Tyson and Brooklyn. The latter showcases his powers, creates a wormhole to another dimension, and pulls himself as well as his opponent into a literal mirror world copy of reality. In there, Brooklyn begins to destroy everything around him to shape the world as per his liking. During this, nobody else can see what's going on with the battle. In that void now, we see an isolated Tyson away from his friends and having no support in combating someone as fierce as Brooklyn. That takes us to the grand finale, episode 52, titled Beyblade for the Ages. This begins right off with the final battle escalating to unprecedented levels. Brooklyn with his Zeus generates a huge black vortex in the sky, which leads to buildings crumbling, ships flying through the air, and the sky turning all dark. Looking at this, Tyson with his Dragoon flies to the skies to stop Brooklyn from committing destruction, but this strategy fails since he's physically incapable of matching Brooklyn's powers. So Tyson changes his tactics and decides to play the mental game. He realizes that Brooklyn gets vulnerable regarding his childhood, which he spent isolated as a recluse. As a result, Tyson tries to rationalize Brooklyn by telling him that Beyblade is one such sport that unites people and builds connections within a community. It was never a game to win control over others. Surprisingly, this pep talk works. The vortex, as well as the darkness, goes away. But just after, Tyson, who we thought had won, decided to claim otherwise. He instead allows Brooklyn to continue battling for the sake of it, just without any stakes. And that's it. This necessity to show heart in the toughest of circumstances shapes the conclusion of the series. Tyson triumphs and defeats Bega, whose headquarters collapsed. With that, Boris is ruined too and disappears from the story altogether. Mr. Dickinson restores the BBA on a small and modest scale. The final bit wraps the story as well as you can, with Tyson and his friends running a local tournament of their own for a new generation of younger bladers. Simple, but so effective. Alright, now that I've covered the 3 seasons completely, there is one thing I want to shed a bit more light on. It's the ending. There's a bit of observation from my end that may pose as a solid theory or two, so hear me out. The final lap of the battle with Tyson and Brooklyn, after the former tells the latter to battle just for the sake of it, is left on an ambiguous note. For the benefit of the doubt, I'd like to believe that it was just two bladers who played to enjoy the sport after that. We don't know the winner, and frankly we don't need to, that's the point. However, that didn't stop the fandom from finding the real winner ever since the episode premiered. The fan-made Beyblade Wiki's position states that Tyson won the final match of the Justice 5, but fan analysis sites and community forums would like to retort. This debate right here is as engaging with its ambiguity as you can possibly get. Some fans do truly think Tyson won since BBA was restored. There are others who point out that a draw would have been likely since they weren't playing to win by the end. An interesting comment under a Reddit post of the same debate said officially they never showed it, even in magazines or interviews. Fans did think Takao was the one who won because at the end of the day, Bega was an organisation and it was a formal event. So for it to dissolve and things go back to BBA, Takao and G Revolutions must have won. But you are right at the end, blade-wise, it really didn't matter as they all saw reason. Another comment under the same post had this to say: Tyson won either way, he brought Brooklyn back to reality. If they continue to fight, Tyson would have won as Kai won. I'm going to leave this up to you, the viewers, to decide what theory fits your interpretation better. I haven't discussed the manga by Takao Aoki yet, and I really should because it had a different ending to its story. It had a solid run from September 1999 to July 2004, overshadowing the anime's run from both sides. But in the manga's rendition, while it seems like the anime takes the general story from, there are some obvious differences in pacing, character quirks, and as I mentioned, the ending. In the pages, the Bega arc came to a close with Tyson absorbing the energy of every bit beast to put an end to Brooklyn's superpowers, which was, as you know, threatening catastrophe. This version feels more heroic in a fantastical sense. There's more substance in here after the final battle too. We see Tyson against Kai to settle things once and for all. There's also the epilogue, which has the children of the Blade Breakers, so it's safe to assume the members of the group all grew up, had families, and went on to pass down their legacies to keep the spirit of Beyblading alive across generations. The manga ending to me feels more tightly wrapped, as it even revisits certain loose ends, like the differences between Tyson and Kai, and also how the Blade Breakers experienced such wisdom when settling down with their families, for such a peaceful ending to the story as a whole. Back to the original series now, and post Season 3 hype, the franchise faced a decline in popularity, and with toy sales also dropping, TV Tokyo with the anime and Koro Koro with the manga both decided to discontinue their own runs. The exhausted franchise saw nothing for years after 2004. It isn't rocket science to find a reason for this, as the story simply got done. In the West, the dubbed version in English was produced by Nelvana and broadcast across YTV and ABC in Canada and the US respectively. Nelvana took some creative liberty too, with some dialogue changes to have the characters settle better and feel a bit more relatable with the Western audiences. This version is one of the most memorable versions in the world, which most fans outside of Japan remember. Just a sprinkle of humour and a bit of shift to some character motivations, and voila, success in the Western world. However, we now move to 2009, and this year saw a full reboot of the franchise. The Metal Saga, as it was known, brought in new characters, like Ginka Hagan and his Storm Pegasus. Following this came Metal Masters and Metal Fury, both of which took things to absolute cosmic as well as godly levels of battle. The original run may have limited itself to a dark organisation being the antagonist, but this one quite literally had them defeat the god of destruction Nemesis. It's just insane. Keep in mind that this was in no way a sequel to the Blade Breakers era. There was no Tyson, Kai, Ray or Max. Then in 2016 up till 2022 came another reboot, which followed Volt Aoi and his friends at the Baigoma Academy. Post this, in October 2023, came the fourth generation titled Beyblade X, with fresh new faces and a newer base system too. None of the stories is a continuation of the G Revolution story in any way. Only the manga of the time showed us the perfect ending to their careers within the franchise. As far as the anime goes, we saw how purely humane the enthusiasm for the sport of Beyblade was, something that united people through friendly competitiveness, which went on to emerge victorious over the power-hungry corporate organisation Bega. This seemingly David Goliath-esque narrative ended the Blade Breakers era with a statement, and it resonated like crazy. And since that ending, the franchise has only had newer stories. It's all been about introducing new characters, their motivations, their Beyblading careers, and their journeys in the Beyblade universe, unrelated to the original run, yet so refreshing and thrilling to watch. And that's our video for today. This video had me look back at the iconic Beyblade cartoon from the early 2000s, along with the manga of the time, and revisit some fond memories of the stories, the characters, the spinning tops, and everything in between them. Beyblade was so much more than just a story of battles of spinning tops, and the anime, as well as the manga, are two sources of testament to my statement. With such a morally ambiguous ending, it has been up for debate since then, and fans just can't stop thinking about it even today. Now, if you enjoyed this video, do drop a like on it, share it with your friends, and let me know in the comments section what your favourite Beyblade was, and also how you thought the original Blade Breakers era of Beyblade anime ended, according to you. Finally, please subscribe for more such content. Until next time, take care and ciao!